Welcome into another episode of Total Hockey Now here on the THN YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook pages. I am at Pucking Thoughts, Adam Bernard. With me to that direction is Mr. Anthony Rivera, at Ant Rivera 86. Also, baseball season right around the corner. Subway to Shea if you're a Mets or an NL East fan. And then my friend north of the border, but below me right now, Mr. Christopher Morais at Fuzzy Chris 91. So, fellas, another week here as we get closer and closer to the playoffs. We are about a month away here, less than a month away, actually.
Best time of the year. Best time of the year to see the playoffs. And you know what? Chris was right last week. It does really feel good to not be in the playoffs and get to actually enjoy the playoffs. Because as much as I enjoyed beating the Rangers last year in the first round, that was very stressful all the way up to Game 7. And here now, I could just sit back, enjoy every other team beat each other up, and have a good time.
I'm glad that you've accepted it. The first step is acceptance, right? The first step is accepting that, the Devils went out and acquired 2 goalies to make their team better. And in reality, that was useless. But it's good that you have joined the, just to relax. You get to, crack open a cold one, maybe a White Claw, maybe I don't know, vodka soda. You can just sit back and you can just enjoy, not having to worry about how well your team does or the turnovers in their own zone or their inability to score goals on the road. You can just sit back, relax, enjoy, and let everybody else deal with, elevated heart rates and extra gray hairs.
You'll be getting texts from me during Ranger playoff series. That is for sure.
And we will be texting you as well. You can guarantee that.
And I fully expect them, and that's part of the deal. And we'll see. We're about a month away. We'll talk about the if the playoffs started today in a second here. But a little bit of sad news to lead off with. About an hour ago, found out that former NHL enforcer Chris Simon has passed away at the age of 52. His career spanned 7 teams, including with the Nordiques Avalanche, Capitals, and Flames, and won a cup with the Colorado in '96. The rugged forward amassed over 1,800 penalty minutes in 782 career games. He also made additional trips to the finals with Washington and Calgary. Also spent 5 seasons in the parts of 5 seasons in the KHL, and he was also part of that infamous Eric Lindros-Peter Forsberg trade. He did openly acknowledge that he suffered from symptoms of CTE due to his playing style. But yeah, just never like to hear of a guy going that young. But our thoughts and prayers go out to the Simon family at this time. At least the NHL has really taken on improving helmet technology over the last 5 to 10 years, and that is seeming to get better as we hear about less and less concussions as time goes on. But again, thoughts and prayers out to the Simon family. Now, if the playoffs started today, a little bit of a change from last week when we did this here. A team we were not expecting to be in the mix. The Washington Capitals are now there. They would be the wild card 2, taking on the Boston Bruins in the East. Rangers Lightning remains the same. Carolina Philly remains the same. Also, Florida Toronto now would be a first-round matchup in the East. Out west, Vancouver Vegas and Edmonton LA still the same. Colorado and Winnipeg have flipped spots, so you'd get a Winnipeg-Nashville first-round matchup and a Colorado-Dallas first-round matchup. So looking at the table here, which matchup would you be looking forward to most out of those 8?
First off, though, I asked you guys last week about Washington sneaking their way into the playoffs, and ever since then, they've won 3 in a row. I don't know if this is something that we should keep. I mean, it's a logjam right now still. I mean, they're only 1 point ahead. Detroit's still there. They're struggling. The Islanders had a rough weekend, that's for sure. And, I don't know about Buffalo. I don't know if I'd consider them. I mean, they're kind of surging, but I don't know if I'd consider them with a chance.
So to me, the wild card contenders are Tampa, Detroit, Islanders, and Washington. The only reason I don't put Buffalo on that list is they've got 2 more games played than a couple of those other teams. And if you look at the schedule, there's just too many games against either teams they got to beat directly or teams that are above them. So, I mean, listen, a young team can get hot down the stretch here, but I don't see Buffalo really pulling that off. But yeah, it's going to come down to those other 4 teams.
Yeah, let's get something straight. The Washington Capitals are frauds. Like, let's continue to reiterate that here. Like, Detroit has lost like 1 million games in a row. Like you said, the Islanders just had a weekend that they want to forget. And I mean, like, good for Washington, I guess. Like, this is a team that can't score goals on the road. Went out West where you're like, man, you're about to get clobbered, and then just won 3 games and 2 of them by the score of like 2-1. You're kind of just scratching your head going like, what are we doing kind of thing here, Washington? But I still believe them to be frauds. Like, let's not even they know they're frauds because they moved they moved Mantha out of there. Like, yeah, we're not. They didn't go out at any pieces. They didn't get any better because even they thought they're like, well, we'll do what we assist. They're a minus 27 in goal differentials. Like, this is like, they're not a very good team. I know the Islanders are, they are what they are. But I mean, just straight out frauds. If I were tuning in today to watch hockey, though, I would be watching any of the, like, whoever finishes second and third in the Central is who I want to watch. That's it. I did Colorado and Dallas. I will watch a ton of that. I just want to watch powerhouses play each other. That's it. The rest of those matchups are good. No disrespect to, like, Florida Panthers and the Bruins and anything in the East, but I mean Colorado is a wagon to follow there, and then Dallas with the the depth that they have, the defense. I feel like that would be a good series.
Let's go back to that East wild card picture for a second, because we're assuming, all right, we'll assume Tampa's going to get one of those spots unless something catastrophic happens to Vasilevsky or one of their top players down the stretch. We're saying the Caps are frauds. We're kind of taking Buffalo off the table here due to the fact that they've got at least 1 or 2 more games played. They still trail on points and they got a tough schedule. So who do you think's getting that wild card 2 spot? The extremely streaky Detroit Red Wings, who will lose 6 in a row and then win 6 in a row like it's no problem, or the Islanders, who, I would say probably of those 3 teams are the one that are probably maybe the strongest. But it's them or Detroit, but it's close.
The Islanders have had so many games where they've just blown that it wouldn't shock me if they just blow this thing at the end. Like, it wouldn't shock me. Very, very Metsian, if I can use that term on here. That's what it feels like here. You look at the plus minus differential, minus 20 for the Islanders, minus 27 for Washington, Philly at a minus 6, Detroit has a plus 3. I mean, I guess it depends on strength of schedule, like how many home games is Detroit going to have. Most of these teams have been pretty decent at home, looking at Washington and Detroit, even the Islanders, and then they just struggle on the road. Whereas Washington, actually, they're only 1 game above 500, but at least they have a winning record on the road.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I would think the Islanders eke it out just because I can't trust Detroit. Like, how long are their bad streaks going to last? And then how long are their good streaks going to last? And, I mean, I think I'd rather see Detroit in the playoffs, because if they get hot at the right time, then all of a sudden they're a real problem. But I think the Islanders ultimately get that last spot, but we'll see. And then looking out west, I mean, it's just a jockeying for position in the Central Division. We'll see how much that cushion disappears here with that when Edmonton starts catching up with games played to Vancouver. And then, that the wild card picture is pretty much set. We assume it's going to be Nashville and then either the Kings or the Golden Knights in that second spot. Blues have been playing better lately, so the Wild, but I just don't see. I see their runs maybe falling short. But, last week I was all about the Wild getting in, so we'll see how they handle the next few games here. And if they keep rolling, might be a different story.
I think
for
that second spot, just give it to nobody. Just give the first place team a bye. Let's just skip that right there. Let's just, like, it doesn't, like, we're fighting over like which of the like terrible Halloween candy like you want to eat. Like, is it like the candy, like the coated apple, or like the peanuts, or is the candy corn? And in reality, those are all terrible, which is exactly the representation of those 3 teams. They are like, they're trying. You know what they should do? Just like take St. Louis or Minnesota and let them occupy that spot. Can't be worse than whatever. I mean, the Wild have played better. The Blues are annoying because they're sticking around, but like you said, Detroit is just, man, watching them play is like, it's rough.
Yeah, I mean, and I think next year they'll improve a little bit. They'll get things right, and I think they'll be a for sure playoff team next year. But they got to be more consistent if they're going to get in. I do like the idea of letting St. Louis or Minnesota get that other spot, wild card spot in the East. And again, I think we all assume that Vegas will move up into that top 3 in the Pacific, and LA will drop. We'll see what happens. LA does have Chicago at home tonight on a massive 13-game slate, so that is pretty exciting there. Let's get to some quick hits here before we move on and talk Central Division odds and we talk NHL Awards odds. First thing up here, Ryan Lindgren is going to a defenseman for the Rangers. He's going to be out for a quote a few weeks. A few weeks pretty much lines him up right to return for the playoffs. So could have been worse. You don't want to be without one of your stalwart defensemen there. They're going to get Jacob Trouba back here shortly. Chad Ruedel, who they acquired at the trade deadline, kind of like a really cheaper, more basic version of Lindgren. So you can kind of plug that similar style defenseman in there. No worries about the playoffs here, especially if it looks like he's going to be back. But, with Lindgren out, do you worry about Carolina creeping up on them in the standings, or the Rangers can easily weather the storm here without Lindgren, especially if they get Trouba back here in the next week or so?
Well, the Rangers are only 4 points ahead of the Hurricanes right now. Both of them have been playing well over the last 10. I think that the Rangers can hold this off until Trouba gets back. They've done well without Trouba in the lineup, so that's something to be proud of as well. And this is a time for the Rangers, whether they win the division or not, to allow their players to get healthy, because they're pretty much guaranteed a playoff spot at this moment. You would obviously want to win the division, but let's say that they don't, and Trouba, Lindgren, everybody comes back healthy for the playoffs. That's what you're really going to want.
Yeah, that's fair in its sense. I mean, maybe their only threat is Carolina, right? And
yeah,
that's a serious threat. The Carolina Hurricanes are a good team. The Flyers are, speaking of frauds, they're right there. John Tortorella has decided tonight that he's going to bench Sean Couturier as a healthy scratch, because obviously anytime you can make your captain a healthy scratch, you should
do it.
You should go out and do it, especially when you're a borderline team to getting third in the Metro Division. So just a lot of frauds right now there. I thought the Metro Division would be one of the better divisions in hockey when the year starts. So many frauds this year, just perfect season. If you were looking to commit tax fraud, I mean, at least 4 of those teams are committing fraud by whatever they're putting out, and just the lack of production. I think the Rangers can get away with it here just because they're overall they're a good team. No disrespect to Ryan Lindgren, but it's not like losing, Adam Fox or someone like that, where it's a bigger loss, I would say. I think they can weather the storm here, and they can just push on and continue and lock up that top spot in the Metro.
Call me crazy here. I don't know if I want the top spot in the Metro, because you're jockeying with, Boston or Florida, or whoever comes out here. So if you finish tops and you get the wild card 2, whoever that is, great. But if you're the second division winner and you got to get Tampa in the first round, I would almost maybe rather fall the second, like Carolina deal with that, and I'll deal with and let the Rangers deal with the Flyers, or if the Capitals or Islanders somehow jump up there. It's all about, you don't want to lose on purpose, but you want the best path to get you to as deep as possible.
Yep.
Even if you beat Tampa Bay, that's probably not going to be an easy series. The Rangers did not look good against them last week. Again, it's 4 points. We'll see what happens between the Rangers and Canes here, but not winning the division may not be the worst thing for the Rangers this year.
And that's the thing too. If the season ended today and the playoff matches you showed us earlier, with the Rangers and Tampa, that matchup seems to me to be the one that would go out of all of them, that I think would go 7. Maybe Florida, Toronto, possibly as well. But this matchup, there's the history between both teams in the playoffs. Like you said, they struggled in the last game against Tampa too. If there's any team that's going to beat the Rangers in the first round, to me, it would be Tampa. If there's any team that has a chance to, they've had their number for a while, especially when it comes to the playoffs. So that would be the only concern that I would have. Not saying that the Rangers can't beat them; they definitely can. But when you look at all the matchups, this is the closest one, and to me, this is the best one out of the East.
I would think so. And then with the Red Wings, they could potentially see them if they win the division and get a wild card. And like we said before, they're so streaky. It's a week-to-week answer. I remember 2-3 weeks ago, my neighbor, shout out Kellen, who's a big Red Wings fan. I'm like, I want nothing to do with Detroit in the first round. now, sign me up. It's just really week to week with that. So we'll see what happens there. So GM meetings going on right now. Something that came out yesterday, and then we'll talk about some of the proposed rule changes here in a second. But that there's going to be a Amazon Prime series featuring 10 to 12 NHL players, similar to what Netflix did with the F1 show Drive to Survive, which did help push the popularity of the sport for sure. F1 needed more of a boost than the NHL, but the NHL will take any boost at that point. So that's going to be cool. If you could pick one player, current or former, that you would like to see on that series, and I'm taking Jaromir Jagr off the list because it's just going to be a lot of working out, and he has an awesome life, and that's an easy answer. Who would you like to see featured in a 10 to 12, for a one episode of a 10 to 12 part series?
I'm not going to go with a player. I want John Tortorella. I want 10 to 12 episodes of John Tortorella, just his sound bites, or just listening to conversations that he may have with like players or something. I want to get like, I want the behind it. Like, it's one thing to yell at Larry Brooks, right? But I want to, like, I can't imagine what he must be like behind the doors kind of thing. That I feel like would be quite interesting. If I did have to pick a player that I would want to like follow around and I guess see, like, for interesting wise, like, it would be like easy to say like McDavid or like Crosby, but I don't know if those guys are like, and maybe they are, I don't know, but I don't know if they're like great TV. Like, do I really want to see what they do like behind? Like, they're much more reserved.
Watching Netflix like the rest of us. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, that they're probably just, they're probably chilling, hanging out with their dogs, kind of thing. You know what I mean? Like, I would have rather this happen like a couple of years ago, where you can get like peak Evander Kane. Like, like that's something I'd want to follow. Like, I feel like he was closer to whatever like Dennis Rodman was when they were doing, The Last Dance. So I would be in for that a lot. I want to see something like that. But I mean, that would have been my pick. I don't know if Evander Kane is on the same wild ride in Edmonton. I can't imagine the casino life being that great there.
I mean, is it possible to have a wild ride in Edmonton? Let's look at that factor too for a minute.
Man, no, no, sorry, Edmonton.
Sorry, Edmonton.
Yeah, it's just, again, it can't be that great.
All right, what do you got, Ant?
To go back to a player that's just not playing now, but had like the personality, and this fits for both of our teams, Chris. PK Subban would have been nice to see, to follow around. He's got that personality. He's got that character. I did watch they did a like an NHL All Access of the draft a couple years ago. I'm pretty sure they do it every year, but the one that I got to see was with Jack Hughes in there. And I hate to be a homer, but Jack Hughes to me has that like personality that brings out on TV. Like, we know that Connor McDavid's the best. We know that Sidney Crosby's up there as well, but like, do they have that personality? And I feel like Jack Hughes is one of those guys that does. And I think that he would play out pretty well on TV if I had to pick one.
Former player, I'm going to go Joe Thornton, because if you recall, this is a guy that once signed a contract extension while he took a break on his rider mower for however massive acre property. Like, so like a guy that, and this is the same guy that like will pick up like new trade acquisitions at the airport. Like, to me, Joe Thornton seems like he's got a life that's always going, always doing something. And then it's even interesting when he's back home on the ranch. So former player, give me Thornton. I'll say this for former players too. Henrik Lundqvist. I mean, when you talk about one of the most beautiful people on 50, like, that guy is just living the life. So that's another one I'd like to see.
They definitely have to have one Ranger on there, right? Like, you have to have that New York atmosphere, that one player that, surrounds that, tri-state area who would you pick now from the Rangers to do it?
I mean, I feel like like a guy like Chris Kreider, like 10, 15 years ago when he's in his 20s, you bet. And that's the other thing too. Like, you pick guys in their 30s, you're going to get what guys in their 30s do. So like, you probably want to shade lower if you want to find, guys are going to be entertaining. I mean, I know Panarin's not young, but he's probably a guy I would want to follow around. Or maybe Adam Fox, big name, still young, still probably out enjoying the New York nightlife in his 20s and stuff like that. So Those would be my two picks right there.
You know, I'm surprised that they haven't done this earlier. Like, I've always liked the NHL All Access. They did it for, I remember the Flyers, Rangers. They did like the 4-part series leading up to the Winter Classic. I thought that was great. I was on a flight either to Florida or New Orleans, and they had an NHL All Access for the Nashville Predators from camp to the regular season. I don't remember what year it was. But I enjoy those. I think they should do more of those. Let's get behind the scenes of these teams. There should be more of this stuff to promote the league. And you know, you don't get to see the players' personalities and all that stuff like during the games. You know, this is a great way to, you know, interact with them and promote the sport.
I think part of it's generational, where nowadays where people are just so used to, like, you always got a phone, there's always a camera going. These guys nowadays don't care as much as a camera following them around. There's, you know, guys from previous generations that are used to having they do their media at their locker, they have the scrum there, and then they know when they're done, they go home, and that's it. You know, and those were the like, no, keep the cameras out, blah, blah, blah. And like, yeah, there should be times where cameras shouldn't be allowed in the locker room, of course, but just generally people are more comfortable nowadays, especially the younger you get generationally, you know, with being around the camera and knowing that people can always have and these guys also are used to the fact that Connor McDavid walks through the Edmonton airport. You don't think he's used to people doing this as he walks by? Like, so they're more comfortable with it now. And I agree. It would be cool to see more behind the scenes stuff. Now, other things that were on the table here, that was one of the things that was discussed and that everybody was okay with. Here's a couple of rules that are on the table. A new coach is challenged to review if a puck hits something when it goes over the glass. The coach's challenge will allow the teams to avoid a penalty for sending up a puck over the glass if it can show it deflected off something. But if they get it wrong, they get simultaneous penalties. So it becomes a 5-on-3 in overtime, not just a 4-on-3. Same thing for high stick penalties, where if you think it was the guy, it was a teammate and not somebody on the other team, you get to challenge that. But same thing, if you're wrong, it's a 5-on-3. Other things on the table: granting a replacement goalie a warm-up if he subs in for a player removed by a concussion spotter, which, I mean, that's a no-brainer to me. A goalie should get a chance to warm up a little bit. Then also a couple of other ones here: giving both the defensive and offensive center a warning for a violation on a faceoff after icings. Currently, only the defensive center gets one, while the offensive center gets ejected. And then also, if a play is blown dead because a goalie loses his mask, the other team is awarded a choice of which side of the zone they get to draw. Also, and this one I'm not kind of crazy about: moving a faceoff one zone to the benefit of the non-offending team if a player refuses to play a puck off a high stick or a hand pass. To me, that's going to take some time to get used to, because if you know your teammate is playing the puck off a high stick, I'm not going to touch it. I'm trained not to touch it. Same thing with a hand pass. So now I'm getting penalized. I mean, I get it, but I don't get it.
Just what we needed, more coaches challenges, because we didn't have enough of those, and that doesn't slow down. Like, baseball's trying to save time, and the NHL's like, how can we add more, make sure this goes on forever? So I mean, I can't imagine a coach, like, unless it's definitive. I guess in this sense, I can live with it somewhat, because I can't imagine many coaches, if you're on the borderline of it, like, you don't already want to challenge and be wrong and then be down 5-on-4. You're telling me I'm going to challenge and I could be down 5-on-3? No. So I can't imagine it. Like, it won't slow down much. Just we're adding more challenges. And I think, like, that's, like, cool. A great idea. The rest of them are just like, okay.
I think,
like, I didn't even know that the offensive centerman doesn't even get a warning. How unfair.
I think because that 5-on-3 is built in, it definitely takes away the coach that's just going to challenge to give his top line or his top shutdown line an extra 30 to 40 seconds to breathe or whatever. So that gets rid of that for sure.
30 to 40 seconds. We're talking about 4 to 5 minutes.
Oh, yeah.
The NHL review. What are you talking about? You have time to make 2 bags of popcorn and probably get through half of it. And we're still trying to figure it out.
I want to know who forgot to call into the GM meetings and ask about our rule from last week of getting an extra point for pulling the goalie in overtime and winning.
The 3-point system.
I don't think we had any creds to show up to the GM meetings. Wasn't able to get in somebody's suitcase or get into the ear of somebody with some pull.
I mean, maybe next year we'll have the pull to get into that. Now, one rule of change that's going into effect immediately, and this is because an official got hurt recently via skate, is no more legs over the bench while the puck is in play if you're not on the ice, 1 warning and then a bench minor. So basically, you're just going to have to be a little more patient with those line changes and not be so quick to jump over the boards. So it takes some time to get used to, but we'll see what happens. We'll see what they get voted on and all that good stuff. So there you go. That's quick hits. Time to talk a little NHL Central Division odds here. And, we know it's a 3-team race at this point. No surprise there. Like, yes, Nashville's still mathematically in it, but no, they're not getting there. If you want to put down a bet at plus 15,000 for Nashville to steal the division from one of those 3, go ahead and have it. So let's take a look at these 3 here. And also the Wild and Blues have plus 100,000 odds at Bet Rivers if you really believe. So right now, all 3 sit at 91 points. Avalanche are still the favorite at plus 130 with 14 games to go. The Jets are plus 185 with 15 games to go. And the Stars are plus 225 with 13 games to go. And are we starting to see the Stars maybe kind of, I know they're there. They've got 1 or 2 less games than the other 2. And then the regulation win tiebreaker, they're severely behind those other 2. They got 30. Jets have 38. Avs have 36. So the Stars really kind of have to either win it on their own or that's it. They can't worry about scoreboard watching.
Yeah, that's fair. It's tough to bet against Colorado, but they are just not that great on the road. Like they are significantly better on home ice and by a wide margin. Like they are a top team when it comes to scoring on home ice. On the road, that's not the same. Georgiev does, he's played better of late, but he's still not very good on the road. Colorado, they have a little bit more depth, but I don't know how much of it. So, my money would be on Winnipeg here. Winnipeg to me feels like they have the best goalie of the 3. I think defensively they're good enough to hold up against any of those other 2. And I think their offense is deep enough to get it done. When everybody's healthy and the contributions that they're getting up and down the lineup, they can go up, I think, against a team like Dallas. To me, yes, Colorado may be the favorite here, but I have them as the 3rd team. I think they could probably finish 3rd in the Central just because they got to do it through pure offense. They need everybody, or at least their top players, to continue to play just a boatload of minutes to get this done. So I think Winnipeg could possibly do it.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with Winnipeg too, and for all the same reasons, and the fact that they have probably the best goalie of the 3 in Connor Hellebuck. I think that's the route that I would go with them. And again, it's right, the strength of schedule the rest of the way. They all have been really good at home. Like Chris said, Colorado's the one that struggles the most on the road. But all of them in their last 10 have played very well. So it's going to come down to the wire, I think. But I'm going with Winnipeg here.
Winnipeg's schedule is not easy looking at it here down the stretch. You don't like to call any game a gimme game, but teams that would fall into that category, Ottawa, Calgary, although they're still playing tough. I'm not ready to throw Minnesota in there. Seattle's still playing. So they only have a couple of quote unquote easy games the rest of the way. You want to throw Washington in there, great. But Washington still believes they're alive at that point. So you're going to get a tough game out of them. So, and there's the Devils coming up. So there's 3 easy games for them there. But the point about Hellebuck and having the best goaltending, if Jake Oettinger would play better, there would be a little bit more of a conversation to be had there. But now let's take a look at the Avalanche's schedule here down the stretch while we're doing all 3. Let's see. So they got St. Louis tonight, Columbus, Pittsburgh. Those are 3 juicy 6-point opportunity right there before they got the Rangers, the Predators, and then you got Columbus. That's they have a little bit of an easier schedule. These 2 teams will face off, the Avalanche and the Jets, on Saturday, April 13th, in a little afternoon matinee. So set your watches for that one. And then just a look at Dallas's schedule here down the stretch. So again, Arizona, Pittsburgh, Arizona, San Jose, Chicago. Buffalo may or may not be alive at that point. So, you look at the 3 schedules the rest of the way. I would make the point, it'd say that Dallas probably has the easiest one. And then Winnipeg has the hardest with Colorado in the middle. Winnipeg's got the goaltending. It really could go a bunch of ways. Gun to my head right now, that Dallas schedule is looking mighty tasty if I'm picking.
It might be tasty, but only one of those goalies has a Vezina. So that's the guy I'm going to go with. If I had the gun to my head, I'm trusting the guy who can get the job done. Even if you look at, like, getting your starter a little bit of rest down the stretch, because you might need it. Laurent Brossoit has done really well as well. So he's benefited from the system as well, I would say, from there. And I mean, Dallas sometimes is just annoying to watch. Like, they're a really good team, and then you see Jake Oettinger get lit up, and you're like, okay, but like, why? Like, why did that happen to you? So I'm still going with Winnipeg. I think that even if the schedule is a little bit more difficult, they can, like, they're good enough to get by it. So they're good enough to keep it close.
So they got the 4-game road trip right now through the New York metro area and Washington. Then they go home for a nice 5-game stand. But look at that 4-game road trip at Minnesota, at Nashville, at Dallas, at Colorado. That is a gauntlet. If they're going to win the division, they're going to earn it in that 4-game stretch. And then, who knows? Maybe they're playing Vancouver for the first overall spot in the West last game of the year. It's very possible.
I mean, look, at the end of the day, like, Minnesota are what they are. Nashville Predators have gone on a run here. They've been an absolute wagon the last couple of weeks. Good for them. You're right. And then you got that tough matchup. You have Dallas, you have Colorado, sure, Vancouver. But again, I mean, if you're going to earn the top spot, you're going to have to earn it. And I think they are the team that can get it done.
Yeah. This immediate road trip that they're on too, I think that's a good trip for them, in the fact that there's not a crazy amount of traveling. They're in the tri-state area for the first 3 games, and then they go to Washington, which is 4 or 5 hour drive, unless they fly out there in an hour.
They fly. That'll be like a 40-minute flight. That's nothing.
Yeah, so I think that's a good trip to start off. Obviously, they come and play Edmonton and Vegas, which is those will be 2 big games. Los Angeles still fighting for their life in there. I feel like Calgary and Minnesota, those are games that they can win. We'll see where Nashville is by the time that game comes around, and if they're still on their hot streak. But that the last 3 out of 4 games is going to probably determine not only the division, but, like you said, with Vancouver at the end there, if they can, squeeze their way into fighting for that top spot, they might be able to.
Just want to look at Colorado's schedule one more time down the stretch here. We talked about Dallas's. They don't really have any tough road trips here. They get a nice 5-game homestand here. When they do go on the road, it's Columbus, it's Minnesota. That Edmonton game should be fantastic. Hopefully they get to meet at some point in the playoffs. But yeah, you look at Colorado's schedule to close out here. After they finish that 3-game road trip, home for the Stars, Wild, probably be out of it at that point. But then you got Winnipeg, Vegas, Edmonton. That is not an easy 3 to close your season out against. And we talked about Dallas's very juicy schedule here. So all right, so let's rank them 1, 2, 3. How will you think they'll finish here in the Central?
I'm going to go Winnipeg, Dallas, Colorado. In that order.
I will go the same. That's exactly how I had it. I have Colorado in the 3rd spot there. Maybe they'll prove me wrong. I don't know. Betting against Nathan MacKinnon is never a fun thing to do.
I'm torn. I don't want to say the same thing you guys have. Dallas with a couple of games in hand. I think maybe because they have a couple of games back, that might hurt them a little bit. So I'm going to go Colorado, Winnipeg, Dallas. I know Winnipeg's got a tough schedule, but if they are who a lot of people think they are, then they'll be able to handle it no problem. So there you go, and you can see the odds scrolling there on the bottom of the screen. So the NHL Central Division Championship, you got Colorado at plus 130, still the favorite. Winnipeg at plus 185. If you agree with Ant and Chris here, so it might be some good money to get. And then if you think Dallas can overcome the games in hand and the regulation win tiebreaker, then there you go at plus 225.
No love for Nashville here, but I mean, look, plus 15,000, right? As Kevin from The Office once said, if someone gives you 10,000 to 1 on something, you take it. So I mean, if you have an extra $1 lying around, maybe you save $1. The coupon you used at the store on your bread. I mean, look, if you're gonna toss $1 on Nashville, bring you back $150.
I mean, it's a single. It's 9 points. It's not like, oh, it's 14. Like, it's 9 points. They've been arguably the hottest team in the league. But what they really need is they need all three to kind of. That's the problem. Is you're not just you need all three of them to kind of fall back in the pack. So, I mean, do we want to look at Nashville's schedule here just for shits and giggles and see what they got to deal with here?
Sure. Let's give Nashville fans a little bit of hope here.
All right, so they got a couple. They've won 2 in a row here. They've looked good lately. Look at all these wins they've racked up over here in the last month or so. Got San Jose coming up. Tough one at Florida. Detroit. Depends if Jekyll or Hyde shows up. Vegas at Colorado. The schedule's a mix of easy and hard teams. I don't think they can get there. I think that they have enough that they can maybe look their point positioning will look better, but I don't think they're getting there.
And they have Chicago, Columbus, and Pittsburgh to finish. So if you bank 6 points there, right, assuming you do the job that you're paid to do, you got to find 3 points somewhere else. Right?
San Jose.
And then yes, sure. Let's say they let's say they beat San Jose tonight, right? You're there. You're there. You just gotta, like you said, you gotta make sure that you can win those games against like Colorado and Winnipeg are crucial. Like you can't lose them. You can't lose them you can't lose them in overtime either. You have to win them in regulation. Those are regulation wins that you need, and then it's just a question of trying to finish it out. I wouldn't say their schedule is impossible. I do understand that like 9 points back is significant. But I mean it's not an impossible task. It's not impossible. I'm not.
They kind of almost have to like win out.
They really can. Well, what do they got? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10.
Yeah,
they got 14, 15 games. You can really only afford 1 or 2 losses that whole stretch.
You have to beat all the teams
they're
that are
13-0-2, right?
It's possible. I mean,
do it again. I don't know.
I just love the story of how they were playing so bad that I think it was Barry Trotz that actually stepped up and said, "No U2 sphere for you." They pulled a soup Nazi on him and said, "Nope, you don't get to." And like that's legitimate because concerts at the Sphere, all these bands coming through with their residencies coming up in the calendar year. Hope one day it's a band I actually want to pay that kind of money to see. But yeah, I mean, I would be bummed too. I'd be all amped up to be going to anything at the Sphere, and then like, nope, you guys aren't playing well enough. And now all of a sudden they've won ever since. So there you go. So there's the NHL Central Division odds. Now NHL Awards odds. Wanted to talk about that here as we come down the stretch here in Total Hockey Now. Let's talk. Let's get right off the bat here. We're not going to talk about the Calder because Connor Bedard, despite missing some time with injuries, has got that locked up. So we'll move on from that one. Let's talk first about the Art Ross Trophy. So you got Nathan MacKinnon at 116 points at plus 105. Nikita Kucherov, 114 points at plus 155. And you got to throw McDavid up there, 106 points at plus 460. So unless McDavid goes on a tear, which is possible, it's starting to be a two-man race. Do you see McKinnon just kind of pulling away from Kucherov, or can he make a run here?
I mean, it's always a choice to bet against McDavid, right? Like it's not something you do and feel good about yourself doing. I mean, the way Nathan MacKinnon has played this season has been something else. I think he can win the Art Ross flat out. I don't see him slowing down. Just the way Colorado plays at home, how much better he is at home as well. His numbers are significantly better on home ice. He plays a ton of minutes. I mean, to me, I feel like it's his to lose. Like unless he cools off and gives somebody else the door to walk in and take it from him, that's his.
Now, speaking of the Art, now that's points. So that's who's going to get there. The next one is the Hart Trophy. Again, Nate MacKinnon, the favorite here at minus 230. Connor McDavid plus 440. Kucherov at plus 500. Austin Matthews at plus 1400. I know he gets lost in the fray because of his company, but I mean, he is having quite the season. If he finishes really strong, maybe he can make a push, but and Hellebuck at plus 8,000 as a long shot. He's probably a lock for the Vezina. Here's the other thing. Kucherov has won a Hart. McDavid's won multiple Harts. Hellebuck has not. McKinnon has not. So I can see voters, kind of, not to say sentimental, but like, okay, if we're going to give a Hart Trophy to somebody that's not named Connor McDavid, this is definitely the year to do it. And this is Nate McKinnon's year. He's absolutely earned it. So I find it tough to kind of stray away from him for the Hart.
Yeah, McKinnon has just blown the league out of the way this season and recently. Yeah, like you said, if they're going to give it to someone other than Connor McDavid and someone who hasn't had it yet, it would be McKinnon, right? I mean, obviously he's going to lead both McDavid and Kucherov in points, and if he wins the Art Ross, it only makes sense to also give him the Hart Trophy as well, even with as good as Austin Matthews has played and Connor Hellebuyck as well.
I will make an argument here for Austin Matthews just once, and that's it. I never want to hear that I haven't given anything to Leafs fans. But if Matthews scores 70, it is quite a thing to look at him and then go, no. Right? Like scoring 50 for him is just like a regular day at the office, right? We've seen him score 60. I mean, I don't remember the last player to score 70. So for him to be able to do that in the modern NHL, I know he's got good support around him, but so do the rest of those players. So that point to me then becomes mute, right? Like McKinnon has, Rantanen, and then McDavid has Draisaitl, and Nikita Kucherov has Point and Stamkos and all. Like, there's enough skill there. So saying, oh, he has Matthews and Nylander, and sure, but everybody else has a sidekick as well. So, and him being able to score 70, I mean, man, it'll be hard. He has to score 70 though. If he doesn't score 70, then even if he comes close, sure, but it's hard to take away from guys like you said, like McKinnon and McDavid, because they are so important to their team. Like, I don't think Edmonton and Colorado are even a playoff team without those two players in the lineup. Like, I don't think so at all. The Leafs, I mean, that's a conversation for another day to enrage another fan base. But it's at 70 goals. You'd have to be. It would be at least a very tough conversation, because you have to look at a player who's done something that somebody hasn't done in the longest period of time, which is score goals. That's what the NHL is about. And say, no, not the most valuable player to your team.
Your last 70-plus goal scorer, you have to go back 21 years, 1992-93 season. I remember Teemu Selanne did it his rookie season. He scored 76 goals. But Alexander McGillney for Buffalo also potted 76 that year. And then Brett Hull the year before, the year before that, he had 70. And then he had 72 in 89-90. Of course, that's kind of coming towards the end of that era where games were like 7-5, 8-4. Yeah. So, that also kind of inflates it a little bit. But I mean, Selanne doing 76, putting 76 goals in his rookie year in the NHL, to me, that is still one of the more underrated rookie feats. Like, Jesus Christ, 76 goals in your rookie year. And we're talking about Austin Matthews, one of the top 3-4 players in the league. Like, oh, he might get 70. And now you got, just unbelievable. But yeah, it is tough to ignore. The guy scores 70 goals, and I understand Toronto, like you said, that's a conversation for another day. Are they a playoff team without Matthews? Maybe, probably, maybe not as high. But it's still, I think it's McKinnon's to lose. But I mean, if, like you said, if he hits 70 and it's a fun, and he gets it in an exciting way, not he's throwing a couple of empty netters here and there and, inching up. I would not be against him getting it. I'll say that. But to me, it's still McKinnon's to lose. Now let's look.
I don't think it's a question about saying like why you should get. To me, it's like telling him like somebody has to tell me why you wouldn't give it to him. Like, tell me why not. You know what I mean? Like, it's easy to say or trying to defend why you should, but tell me why not. Tell me why scoring 70 goals in the NHL is not just a massive. Can McKinnon and McDavid get 130 plus points in a season again? Yeah. They probably could, but none of those players are on pace to score 70.
And it's not it's not a meaningless 70 goals. Like, what did Erik Karlsson have last year? 90 something points or whatever, or something crazy like that, but they were meaningless. This is 70 goals on a team that, needs him to get there. Now, Connor Hellebuyck was a guy we haven't really talked about in the Hart conversation, because it's very tough for goalies to win the Hart Trophy. It doesn't happen very often, but I mean, he's got to be a lock here at this point for the Vezina. Sergei Bobrovsky's the next best odds-on favorite. Hellebuck at -480, Bobrovsky at +650. So that gives you an idea there. Thatcher Demko was +700 before the injury. If he, maybe he might have, but probably not. And Jeremy Swayman at +2500. Make the argument to not give it to Connor Hellebuck. I'll wait.
Impossible. Well, imagine how wild it would have been him winning the Vezina with like a New Jersey Devils jersey on, but we'll never know.
We'll never know.
We'll never know.
Torture.
I feel like the Hellebuck name would have looked real nice in that red on the white jersey, and it would have looked real sharp, with the NJ there, like right there on the crest.
Instead, they went to wish.com, got themselves a Jake Allen, which I guess is similar, but not.
It was like that AI Christmas meme where the kid is crying at the present he opened up that morning that was going around this year. That's basically what that is. Norris Trophy, and this is another one where it's probably, Quinn Hughes at -390. Although Cale Makar +300, if he finishes strong, could potentially steal it from him. But this is a two-person race. Noah Dobson +2000, great. He's having a huge impact for the Islanders, but he's not a Norris winner this year. Same thing for Evan Bouchard at +2500. For me, if Makar can really make a push down the stretch, it's him. But coming into the year, we said it was either Quinn Hughes or Makar, and Quinn Hughes has just been lights out from day one and has played that way. Not that Makar's been bad, but again, it'll be somebody new to get the Norris this year.
Yeah, and a huge reason why the Vancouver Canucks are in the position that they are in at the top of the conference. So, I'm going Quinn Hughes here.
Yeah, it's hard to bet against him as well. Although I will say, Noah Dobson's putting up one of those years where he does a lot of great things, takes a lot of shots, block shots, he's racking up assists, he's doing all the good things that you like an elite defenseman to do. But he's in a category right now where he can't. I feel like the Norris Trophy now is not about the best overall defenseman. It's about the defenseman that's the most offensive, and those two haven't beat. So, that's it. It is what the award has become.
Yes.
But again, it's hard to bet against Quinn Hughes, seeing how just the turn in his offensive production, his goal production, right? And just the way that he plays and how much better the team is around him as well because of his play. It's there's a lot of combination of things that have happened there, but same thing. I can't see somebody taking that award away from him. Not at this point.
Here's a thought. So we're not going to talk about the Selke Award today because I couldn't find odds for it. And frankly, who the hell cares about Selke odds? That being said, the Selke Award goes to the defensive forward. The Norris Trophy has essentially become the best offensive defenseman trophy. Basically, you have to be top 5 in scoring with some semblance of defensive ability. Do we need to have a defensive defenseman award? Does that need to happen? Do we need a Jeff Bukaboom award? Because it's to me, a defenseman's job is to help keep the other team off the score sheet. Now, yes, the defenseman needs to be involved in the offense. You want the rush to start with the defenseman, lead the puck up the ice. I get it, but we're giving the best positional award because they're doing the other thing that's associated with their job. So to me, there should be some sort of defensive defenseman award. You want to name it after Nicholas Lidstrom, who still was very good offensively, but was just about as rock solid a defender as there ever has been. Maybe somebody like that. But I do think there needs to be a defensive defenseman award. I don't know how it would have to be voted on because there's no real metrics to determine that. But there are, but
you would need a whole bunch. You would need a committee of older people to decide what modern day metrics they are willing to accept. And I think we're not there yet.
A couple of years.
At least, there are some people still using an iPhone 6. So, we got a minutes to go here. Trying to get them to agree on it's some of these people voting for the awards still use the plus minus and grit and character as ways to measure a player's success, which I understand those are things that you can't really measure. But we can also measure everything else basically. So why don't we use things that we can measure so we can understand how good a player is and not just rely on his, locker room presence.
One award that the metrics really doesn't come into play, and it's just, wins, losses, and the eyeball test. It's Jack Adams, which is the coach of the year. Up in Vancouver, Rick Tocchet is the odds-on favorite at -450. Paul Maurice in Florida +700. Rick Bowness in Winnipeg +1300. And Peter Laviolette with the Rangers at +1500. So to me, this pretty much comes down to the argument of, do you want to give coach of the year to the guy who took the team from the furthest down up in the standings and had the biggest turnaround? Or is it going to go to a guy that came into a team with expectations and has maintained those expectations throughout the season? And then Rick Bowness is a little bit of both of that, where came into the year, we didn't have high hopes for Winnipeg because we thought Hellebuck was going to be traded, and then they make the deal with Scheifele and Hellebuck, and then all of a sudden away they go and they're at the top of the standings. So I get the sentiment for Tocchet. He's probably going to win it, but I mean, if you gave it to Rick Bowness, I would be very okay with that too.
That's my pick. I'm going with Rick Bowness. Not even the fact that even after they re-signed Connor Hellebuck and Scheifele, we still thought that they were not going to, be in the playoff hunt. Maybe they get close, but we didn't think they were going to be this good. Like they really turned it around. So I'm a huge Winnipeg fan this year, and I think that they have just exceeded the high expectations. Obviously, same thing in Vancouver, but the way that they've done this in Winnipeg, it has me going with them. Peter Laviolette, like you said, Rangers, I had a feeling that they would be one of those top teams in the division, whether they changed the coach or not. Like it just needed a little roster tweaking, which they did. And they're right back in the spot where they should be. Now I got to ask you a question. Like, are there any odds for, a Chris Knobloch in Edmonton for turning around mid-season a terrible team and having one of the best winning streaks? I know he's not going to win, but like, what are the odds for a Chris Knobloch as well as an Andrew Brunette in Nashville for a team that we didn't think was going to make the playoffs either, and who should be the coach right now of the New Jersey Devils? But they let him go. But those two guys are I wonder like what their odds are, because I think that they should be a part of this conversation as well.
So what I'm seeing here, Chris Knobloch +3,000. Yeah, and I get it. That is absolutely a valid point, and he should probably be more of a favorite than he is. But people are just going to point to, oh, well, you got McDavid and Draisaitl. I mean, blah blah blah, and it's like, yeah, I get it, but I mean, that team. We were talking about them missing the playoffs months ago, and now here they are, like, oh, they're probably going to be the number 2 team in the Pacific, no doubt about it.
Weren't they at the second to last behind Calgary at the end of November?
And here, I mean, listen, I think he should be higher on that list. I still think, I would probably give it to Bowness, but I mean, listen, you can't argue against Rick Tocchet either. I mean, he's done a great job there. I mean, I think we can agree it's going to go north of the border. It's just a matter of to which team. I mean, you don't get Stanley Cups up there anymore, Chris, but you get Jack Adams occasionally. I'm sorry, but you took a swipe at it, and I know a swipe's coming back to me, but
I mean, to be fair, Adam, I mean, I've been sniping since Chris Kreider has existed.
Yeah, that's
running into Price, and we've been here, done that kind of thing. Like it's still there. I just don't know how we're just not giving any love to Paul Maurice. This man took a team that was, I mean, they needed the Penguins to be unable to win 2 games last year to make the playoffs. They did so. Went on a crazy run to get to where they need to. They fell a little bit short because they were literally wounded warriors. And then, like, they've come back this year. They're a really, really good team. They're scoring goals. And to me, if they win the Atlantic, I'm having a really hard time looking at Paul Maurice and going, no. Like, even if you thought that they would be a better team this year, I don't think anybody had them as the top team in the Atlantic. At least I didn't have them as
I had them as a for sure playoff team. I thought they didn't get the respect they deserved odds wise for being the defending champs. But yeah, I mean, I think we didn't have Boston winning the division, but I think a lot of us went Toronto or Florida was in the mix, but we didn't really pick them.
I think Florida falls in to the same category as the Rangers, right? I mean, yes, Florida kind of backed their way into the playoffs last year, and then went on that miracle run. But you look a year before that, and they're the best team in the league. So this is kind of them coming back to their, I guess, to their norm in being one of the top teams there. So that's kind of where I see Paul Maurice kind of fall into that Peter Laviolette category, where yes, these teams have played well, and they just kind of just maintain them being as good as they were. Whereas Rick Tocchet and Rick Bowness, we didn't see these two teams at the beginning of the season being anywhere near the playoffs at all. We also thought Winnipeg was going to take it even further step backwards, especially if they didn't re-sign Hellebuck.
I think, with the Paul Maurice argument, it kind of translated to another sport here. Like, let's take Andy Reid with the Chiefs. He's got back-to-back Super Bowl champions. Now people will be like, oh, well, look at the team he has. And it's like, right, but if the Chiefs all of a sudden sucked next year, you'd be like, well, it's got to be the coaching. So it's like a double standard there. It's like you still have to keep that team together. You still have to, keep a team motivated. That's one thing that, they're a great team. They go, well, you got to keep that team motivated through 82 games. And they can do a good job staying hungry themselves. But, when there's lulls, that's when it's on the coach to try and get the team going. And yeah, Paul Maurice, one of the all-time great coaches. But again, I think because Tocchet, it's just the story. Like, he comes in, the team turns around, blah, blah, blah. So I think, and because there weren't as high expectations for Vancouver, but again, if it's me voting, I'm giving it to Rick Bowness. We got a Paul Maurice vote down here. Now, one thing I can predict for sure is that because Anthony did not get Connor Hellebuck to the Devils, when Team USA jerseys come out for the next Olympics, I can see Anthony getting a Connor Hellebuck USA jersey to kind of fill that void. That's what I'm predicting.
I may just do that. There's no lies there. Or they'll probably have a Jack Hughes USA jersey. Might get one of those as well.
Now, now speaking of American players, an American hockey legend, arguably the best American-born player of all time, Mike Modano. This past weekend, he got a statue dedicated to him outside their arena in Dallas. It's the American Airlines something. I always forget. American's Airline Arena and American Airlines Center. One's in Miami, one's in Dallas. Anyway, he gets that statue out there with the nice green and late 90s Stars look there. So we're going to do a Mike Modano edition of Sweater Weather this week. And here it is. Are we going rookie year Mike Modano North Stars, or are we going 500 goal Mike Modano / Stanley Cup champion Mike Modano era jersey there? Fellas, what do we like?
For me, I'm a tad biased. I mean, I'm only 33, so I didn't really see the only Minnesota I know is the Wild, not the North Stars. Playing minor hockey, when I was a kid, our jerseys resembled the jerseys of the Dallas Stars of the Mike Modano 500 goals. That's what it looked like. We had home and away jerseys. They looked exactly like that. We were called the Jets instead. This was before Winnipeg even had a team. So I'm a little bit biased. I have a lot of pictures when I was a kid of the Jets jersey with the Dallas colors like that. So that's what the first year I played, they had like an older kind of version. They were falling apart kind of thing. So then the city decided to put a little bit of money into it. We got nice ones like that. So I'm, again, a little bit biased, but that's the one. The 500 goal for Mike Modano is where I'm leaning.
Let me just start off by saying that I like both of these jerseys. The 90s one with the outlining of the star, as the lines right there, I think that's a nice touch to it. But I'm going with the rookie Mike Modano and the Minnesota North Stars. That falls in line for me with other extinct teams like the Quebec Nordiques and the Hartford Whalers. Like, if I was going to get some classic jerseys, those three are on the top of my list of classic jerseys. So I'm going with the rookie Mike Modano and the Minnesota North Stars.
Much as I like the North Stars jersey, and you got to say with the late 90s Modano jersey, those like white and yellow stripes, they just scream late 90s design the way the jerseys were going.
Yeah.
I do love that as much as I love a good Kelly Green as a Jets fan. I mean, here's my answer right here. That's where we're going. I'm going with Mike Modano. You got the starting lineup here in that exact jersey that Chris was talking about. That's where I'm going because I love that green. That was a great era. I love those Stars teams. They were fun to watch. And I'm gonna go with that green there. So
hey, that statue too. That statue that you put up there. That's a beautiful looking statue.
This is a starting lineup, but this is from like the late 90s when they got better at doing like the details and stuff like that. So
Nice.
he's got a few of them. I think he's got at least 3 starting lineups that I could think of, but the older stars look. But yeah, I got Mike Modano also just in general as a guy in Brooklyn growing up and watching hockey in the early 90s and that being like my formative hockey years. I mean, Mike Modano was a borderline god. You know what I mean? He was a very good American hockey player that could stand toe to toe with some of the Canadians and kind of led the team before the United States before they really kind of took off and became like somebody that could be on par with Canada. So got to go with a 500 goal Modano there. That was a lot of fun. Now, folks, that'll do it for this edition of Total Hockey Now here on the Total Hockey Now YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter network. Don't forget, rate, review, subscribe on any of those platforms. Follow us. Help us out here. Reach out to the show, totalhockeynow@gmail.com, or hit us up on Twitter at Pucking Thoughts, at Ant Rivera 86, or at Subway to Shay, and then at Fuzzy Chris 91. Of course, you could catch Chris's Slapshot podcast there at Slapshot Podcast as well. Subway to Shay, there's the information. And then tomorrow on Rip and Riff, I'll be ripping some hockey packs, some 2022-23 Upper Deck Extended Series. Jared Moore bringing some baseball to the table at Mr. Jared Moore there. And not that either of us really know a ton about college basketball, but it is March Madness week. And I will have a pack of college basketball cards to just kind of celebrate there. And don't forget, Frozen 4, not too far away. Love that time of year. Some of the best hockey you'll watch all year is the collegiate hockey tournament. I know the women's is getting underway. I believe their Final Four is set. So that'll be cool as well. But
hey, also shout out to the 37 that are in here with us live on Twitter. Appreciate the love. Thank you for tuning in, and we love bringing this show to you guys each and every week.
We do, and I know we've been bouncing around a little bit here the first few weeks as we get settled, but I think we're going to be on Tuesdays moving forward. We'll update the Twitter profile for the next episode. I'll hopefully be with you next Tuesday. But for my line mates, Anthony Rivera and at Fuzzy Chris 91, Christopher Morais, at Rivera 86, I'm at Pucking Thoughts, Adam Bernard. Back with you next week here on Total Hockey Now.